Hello, welcome back to USIS Axiom videos. We will learn AP Bio Chapter 6, Cellular Energetics today. Today's topics: cellular respiration and photosynthesis. Cellular respiration has two types: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Before we start, brief summary of last time. There are rules in thermodynamics. First law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, which means the sum of energy in the universe is constant. And second law of thermodynamics states that energy transfer leads to less organization. This is called entropy. It means the universe tends toward disorder, useful to unuseful, useless, only happening in one direction. In order to power cellular processes, energy input must exceed energy loss to maintain order. Cellular processes that release energy can be coupled with cellular processes that require an input of energy. Many pathways are sequential to make energy transfer more efficient. A product of one step is often a reactant for the next step in a process. A lack of energy flow or order results in death for an organism. And we also learned that there are two types of reactions: exergonic, which is releasing energy, and endergonic, which is absorbing energy. Now let's move on to today's topic. Almost everything an organism does requires energy. How then can the cell acquire the energy it needs without becoming a major mess, like we learned about the second law of thermodynamics? Fortunately, it's through adenosine triphosphate, ATP, the best energy source available for us. ATP, as the name indicates, consists of a molecule of adenosine bonded to three phosphates. The great thing about ATP is that an enormous amount of energy is packed into those phosphate bonds. So the bond is a energy storage. When a cell needs energy, it takes one of these potential packed molecules of ATP and splits off the third phosphate, forming adenosine diphosphate, ADP, and one loose phosphate, PI, while releasing energy in the process. This process occurs like a cycle, reverse happening, so endergonic reaction going to exergonic reaction, and back and forth, so it is called reaction coupling. By the way, we can see here too that ATP is a neat and relatively easy energy source because only one bond needs to be broken. See the equation, ATP arrow ADP plus P plus E. This happens back and forth. But where does all this ATP come from? It can be formed in several ways, but the bulk of it comes from a process called cellular respiration. Cellular respiration is a process of breaking down sugar and making ATP. In autotrophs, the sugar is made during photosynthesis. In heterotrophs, glucose comes from the food we eat. In plants, photosynthesis is a precursor to cellular respiration. So let's start with photosynthesis. 6CO2 plus 6H2O, C6H6O12 plus 6CO2. You'll notice from this equation that carbon dioxide and water are the raw materials used to manufacture simple sugars. You'll also see that oxygen is one of the products of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process by which light energy is converted to chemical energy, the process of capturing free E in sunlight and storing that E in chemical bonds, especially glucose. The whole process begins when photons, energy units, of sunlight strike a leaf, activating chlorophyll and exciting electrons. The activated chlorophyll molecule then passes these excited electrons down to a series of electron carriers, ultimately producing ATP and NADPH. Both of these products, along with carbon dioxide, are then used in the dark reactions, light independent, to make carbohydrates. Along the way, water is also split, and oxygen gets released. One important concept to know for the AP exam is that there is strong evidence that prokaryotic photosynthesis contributed to the production of oxygen in the atmosphere. Furthermore, prokaryotic photosynthesis pathways laid the evolutionary foundation for eukaryotic photosynthesis to develop. But remember, there's much more to photosynthesis than what's shown in the simple reaction above. Plants, algae, and cyanobacteria are producers. The earliest photosynthesis was conducted by prokaryotic cyanobacteria, and later, eukaryotes developed photosynthetic abilities. All they do is bask in the sun, churning out the glucose necessary for life. Let's move on to the chloroplast structure. The leaves of plants contain lots of chloroplasts, which are the primary sites of photosynthesis. Now let's look at an individual chloroplast. If you split the membranes of a chloroplast, you'll find a fluid-filled region called the stroma. Inside the stroma are structures that look like stacks of coins. These structures are called the grana. The many disc-like structures that make up grana are called thylakoids. They contain chlorophyll, a light-absorbing pigment that drives photosynthesis, as well as enzymes involved in the process. The very inside of a thylakoid is called the thylakoid lumen. Many light-absorbing pigments participate in photosynthesis. Some of the more important ones are chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, carotenoids. These pigments are clustered in the thylakoid membrane into units called antenna complexes. All of the pigments within a unit are able to gather light, but they're not able to excite electrons. Only one special molecule, located in the reaction center, is capable of transforming light energy to chemical energy. In other words, the other pigments, called antenna pigments, gather light and bounce energy to the reaction center. Okay, that's the end of today's lesson. Time is out. We will continue in the next class about cellular respiration. Thank you for watching the video.